Hi friends, this is Sarah from Crafting and Relaxing. Welcome. Thank you so very much for joining me. Today we're going to flip through a vintage scrapbook. I think this might be from the 50s. We'll figure it out as we go. I had one a while ago that was from the 40s and 50s, I think. And if you missed that one, I'll try and remember to put a card right here at the beginning so that you can just pop over and start there if you want. So this one we'll flip through. I do have some digitals in my Etsy store, and my Etsy store is linked in the description. But you'll have to tell me as we flip through this book what you'd like to have digitals of. I'm very new at making digitals, so I'm not going to just go through and scan the whole thing. I'm slow. Okay, so we have, this is probably from a Navy family. So there's going to be some cool stuff in here. USNS David C. Shanks. And a really cool picture, and then you can see the yellowed tape on it. Very cool. Okay, we're in 1952. It's going to have lots of newspaper clippings from a town. I believe she had moved away, and she was keeping track of her community. Reverend Loomis and wife leave West Linfield in 1952. These are on the vintage paper. They might be cool to make ephemera from, or to make clusters. Like, have this as your background, and also just to have these cool old yellowed dates. March 28th, 1952, April 11th. There's lots of weddings in here, twins, and just all sorts of stories. Okay, let's read this one. What they wrote in the newspaper back then was so funny. I did a bunch of genealogy stuff, and some of the things were hilarious. Miss Karen Mills is spending the week with her sister, Mrs. Wesley Young, Plainfield. Mr. and Mrs. Ralph Miller of Buffalo are spending a few days with Mr. and Mrs. Myron Burke. Mr. and Mrs. Gilbert Petrie of Tonawanda were supper guests of Mr. and Mrs. Kenneth Hubbard Tuesday evening. Friends of Miss Marion Bailey are very sorry to hear of the serious accident which she was in Saturday night. Word received from St. Elizabeth Hospital is that she is recovering satisfactorily. Mr. and Mrs. Arthur Yawn, son of Winstead, Connecticut, spent Thursday with his sister, Mrs. Kenneth Hibbard and family. Mrs. David Hill and two children of Indian Orchard, Massachusetts, called at the Philip Brown home on Friday. Robert Royce of Jordanville spent several days at the home of his grandmother, Mrs. Walter Royce, the past week. Mrs. J. Lloyd Mills, together with Mrs. Emma Hitchings, Mrs. Minnie Crandall, and Mrs. Frances Wood of West Winfield, attended the Vesper service held at the old Fort Herkimer Church Sunday afternoon. It doesn't make newspaper when I go visit a family member. I just think it's kind of adorable. All kinds of neat stuff. Valedictorian and old pictures. Miller's Mills Grange Tops and Play Contest. I love the twins. Oh, this is a fun old picture. Run getters, and not the stocking variety. The Utica State Hospital team of the city's girls softball league will let you know quickly. Seated left to right, and then it has all their names, deaths and funerals. Rugs. Works of art. Mrs. Willard Steve's instructor shows part of the display of hooked rugs presented in the rug show in West Winfield Baptist Church. Entries were made by classes in West Winfield, New Berlin, as well as home bureau units in Oneida County. Guests were present from Syracuse, Utica, Boonville, and Mohawk Valley communities. 40th, celebrate in advance their 40th anniversary. They kind of cheated then. Was noted Sunday when relatives, third party, maybe they were just a couple days. Oh, here's one that's going to open up for us. It's a very shiny picture too. Can you see that? Yeah. And there's nothing inside. Then this one, for my adorable wife. I am working, honey. That's awesome. I'm a boy. Someone cute and tiny, as sweet can be, has come to live at our house and join our family. I just arrived. These are just precious. I love that they're all like 2x2 tiny announcements. It's a boy. Maybe they're 3x3. I think we saw one like this in the other book. A wedding announcement where it folds. This is this graduation. the senior class Lincoln High School commencement exercises. Very cool. Here's something. I'm grateful for your anniversary letter and rejoice that you two can be together again. I pray that God will bless you always in all things, faithfully yours. From the Seventh Baptist Church, May 9th, 1952. 50th anniversary, weddings, best airman last month gets award. I think that's not right. For sales store job. I'm thinking he got an award, you guys. Yeah, I think he got an award. Okay, weddings, receipt for collection. Check this out. Okay, it is a 5-day hospital bill at $1.75 per day. 5 days in the hospital, $8.75, paid cash. January 1953. That is crazy cool. Okay, then we've got some newspaper clippings about finished construction jobs in World's Fair this month. And where was the World's Fair? Construction jobs in the 53 Philippines International Fair will be finished on or before January 15th. Okay. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, Field Station 8609, Administrative Area Unit, Clark Air Force Base, in the Philippines. Commanding officer. Okay, what year? Well, we're probably in 53, right? Oh, Christmas dinner, 1952. Very, very cool. Oh, it's for a dance, and it's all typed out. Oh, my gosh. More news from the town we're following. Miss Marion Bailey has so far recovered from her recent accident as to leave St. Elizabeth Hospital, Utica, and is recuperating at the home of her aunt, Mrs. Claude Ferguson, at Barneveld. All right, good to know. She's getting better. A fine letter from Shirley Ryder. Oh, we got to read this. Dear friends back home, it is a penitent apostle who again writes you after a long silence. The weeks have slipped by amidst Easter preparation, mountain sunrise service, examinations, typhoons, and the like. The rainy season is in full progress now, and we are experiencing a drenching rain at this moment. This season gives us more insects than usual, and for the second time, a big horrible centipede over 7 inches in length crawled into my bed. Oh my gosh. Needless to say, if he were looking for company, he didn't have it long. I flew from my bed this is in the newspaper, with much less effort than it usually takes on early mornings. Centipedes, spiders as big as teacups, fleas, cockroaches, and mosquitoes are our worst pests, although about 3 weeks ago I stood keeping the girls away from a poisonous snake which had come to learn at our Christian school. Changeable weather and changeable people seem to be in order here. There's much political unrest in this country. Oh, she's in Japan. Oh my gosh. Japan, June 15th, 1952. There is much political unrest in this country, which would harass the government and people in every way possible. Japanese and foreign Christians are working feverishly to make the small percentage of Christians keep pace with the situation of the country and the world. If ever there was a difficult time in history of Christianity, it is now. Wow. Maybe she wasn't a military wife. Maybe she was on a mission or something. Okay, there's a lot of, it gets kind of weird, so I'm going to stop now. There was a lot of stuff in the paper back then, wasn't there? And you could just, write all these kinds of letters. I do like that they told us the lady was getting out of the hospital. I'm just grabbing stuff and reading it. I didn't really plan it, and I don't know who put these on. I think it was a family member. I think she's telling us, this is a person in this family. Fire destroys the great Hansel barn. Fire of undetermined origin destroyed the large basement barn, together with 2 silos, 17 young purebreds, and quite a quantity of farm machinery, hay, grain, etc. Thursday evening of last week. A passerby saw flames coming from the end of the barn where the machinery was stored. He stopped and aroused the family, and Mr. Hansel, his son Kent, and Theodore Bailey, a hired man, rushed to the barn and succeeded in driving most of the farm's 72 head of purebred shorthorn cattle from the burning structure. About 17 of the stock perished, however. The cattle, which were saved, have been sheltered in the Earl Barden barn just north of this village. An alarm was sent to this village, and the firemen quickly responded, as also did the Cedarville and Richfield Springs companies. But the barn was beyond saving by the time the firemen arrived. Quite a thrilling sight which followed the fire was the driving of the large herd of cattle right down US 20 to the sales stables in East Winfield, where they were stabled for the night. State troopers arrived and stopped all traffic, while about 50 men drove the herd to its destination. Although the building and contents were insured to some extent, the loss still remains very heavy, and it is a decided blow to the Hansel family, who have the sympathy of the entire community. Wow. She was keeping track of people. It's interesting to see what's in here. We welcome the following into the membership of the Federated Church this morning by baptism: Marion Bailey, Evelyn Christensen, Jane Christensen, Helen Christensen. Yeah, okay. It must have been cut out of the program because the font is different and I like it. It's fun. That's why I read it. Weddings. Some people spent the afternoon together for a 16th birthday party. Top seniors at West Winfield. Suzanne Ford left and Doris Madison won valedictorian and salutatorian honors in West Winfield senior class. I don't think we had that at our school. Oh gosh. Near drowning, it says Mabel and Glenn. Near drowning averted when craft overturns. Warren, 3 persons narrowly escaped being drowned late yesterday afternoon when the boat from which they were fishing capsized in Little Lake about 3 miles from Richfield Springs. Mr. and Mrs. Glenn Howard of the little town Chepachet and her brother Clarence Mills from Chepachet are patients in Bassett Hospital, Cooperstown, suffering from shock and exposure. Their condition was not believed serious. The 3 were saved by the quick action of Matthew Milkus, 31, of 23 Top Notch Street, Little Falls, who was fishing in another boat nearby. Micus told Trooper Ralph Charlton of Richfield Springs Outpost the first he knew of the accident was when he heard the screams. He said he then saw the capsized boat and the 3 occupants in the water. The 3 told the trooper they were fishing when Mrs. Howard, 47, hooked a pickerel. They said that in the process of netting the fish, the boat took on water and capsized. The 3 were thrown from the sinking boat into the icy water. Milkus said he went to the aid of the trio. He said he succeeded in getting the 2 men into his boat and in throwing a line to Mrs. Howard. He said he proceeded to shore, dragging the woman behind the boat. Howard, 52, was taken immediately to the Cooperstown Hospital in the McGrath ambulance, Richfield Springs. Well, I'm glad they were okay. It's interesting, they put an address even. Kay's graduation. Miss Karen Frances Mills. Seniors, this is 53. Mrs. Ellen P. Jones, 2650 Oneida Street, announces the engagement of her daughter Eleanor Jane to Morgan W. Jones, son of Mrs. Walter Siaslak, 1221 Butternut Street, Beverly Studio. The baby has arrived. Order accepts Springs girl. Miss Joan Marie somebody, daughter of somebody, will enter the convent of Sisters of Mercy in Albany September 8th. Formerly a resident of Chepachet, she attended West Winfield Central School until 4 years ago when she moved here with her parents and entered the Richfield Springs Central School. She was graduated as an honor student in June and was the winner of the commercial prize offered by the First National Bank for the highest understanding of business relations. She was a member of the Girls Athletic Association during her 4 years of high school, served on the staff of the senior yearbook, and was active in several music groups. Her brother Felix has been a brother in the Jesuit order for 20 years. Mrs. Joseph Zaleski of Chepachet and Mrs. Paul Blowers of West Winfield are sisters of Miss her. They're sisters of her. She is a member of St. Joseph's Church and a former member of its choir. Here's another graduation thing. Kind of stuck closed. Look at all this tape. You don't even have to buy it. It's just here. And it scans really well, I think, too. News about local boys in the service. Okay, we have to hurry up a little bit because the air conditioning's off and it's getting hot. 3 entertainers who came to the higher trail class. Their selections were just as entertaining as their faces are bright and happy. Oh, little old notes. Look at that. Mixed ladies pin champs. The bowling team. Strikers stop New York Central freight for West is embargoed between Buffalo and Chicago. Wow. Okay, let's read part of it. I'm just picking a random paragraph. Only one line, the nickel plate, was operating westbound passenger trains from Buffalo. There was a hint the tie-up might spread to eastern New York. About 250 confused passengers were left scrambling for taxicabs, buses, and planes yesterday by the unexpected strike. In Syracuse, the Central started to post layoff notices. An estimated 3,000 workers between Buffalo and Harmon will be notified by the end of the day. Clifford F. Grimes, general manager of the lines east of Buffalo, said, "Yard crews, road crews, freight handlers, and office, station, and maintenance employees will be affected," he said. Huh. No peace in the Philippines. United Nations War Correspondent Fred D. Jarvis explained some of the recent activities to Chaplain J. M. Bradbury during a program conducted at Chapel No. 3 earlier this week. Mr. Jarvis visited Clark for 2 days as part of a Far East tape recording tour. Tape recording. Can you see the mic? Look at that. It's awesome. The baby announcements are great. I guess this one's like 2x3. With a permanent welcome at our house. Okay, Army OK's new NCO specialist program. Church Hamlet's Silent Guardian. Oh, that's just cute. The society was founded in 1829 and the present church was erected in 1837. Okay. It's not all newspaper clippings, so I want to try and get to some other stuff too. This must be from the Philippines. The font is totally different. Yep. Those trees are gorgeous. Clark News. Slit skirts. Wow. Things are getting racy in here. Social Security topic at Rotary. Ooh, let's read this. Norman Hess, alien lawyer and son-in-law of Rotarian Harris Myers, gave a talk on Social Security at the Tuesday evening Rotary meeting. The speaker said that Social Security was started in the early 30s by states and later control was assumed by the federal government. Starting at a 1% deduction on wages, it has gradually increased. The first of the year, said Hess, another raise is contemplated. President Eisenhower is against this increase, but the decision will be made in the next congressional session. At the present time, there is approximately $18 billion in the federal Social Security fund, but with yearly increased payments, a larger fund is needed. Yes, it is. There's all kinds of cool stuff. It's weird how, it's still interesting and relevant. And postmaster to shut office after 18 years of service. After more than 18 years as postmaster in Chepachet, Mrs. Mabel Howard will close its doors on December 31st. The post office has been in operation since about 1878, when mail used to come on the DL&W Railroad. About 20 years ago, the service was transferred to West Winfield, which serves the little community by mail truck. Reaching Chepachet in bulk, Mrs. Howard resorts it for 8 members of her star route and 15 patrons who call for their mail at the General Store Post Office. Owned and operated by her father, Milton Howard. Chepachet is a 4th-class post office, and in line with recent reductions in the United States mail service, it was thought by her superiors that mail could just as well be delivered on a star route basis from the nearby village of West Winfield. Mrs. Howard said yesterday the average mail received by her was about 50 letters and circulars per day. Her gross in sales of stamps averages about $300 a year. At one time, Chepachet was the distributing point for mail for Cedarville, about 3 miles north of the hamlet. But as the train service stopped and modern distribution methods took their place, the Chepachet post office has bowed to progress. Mrs. Howard said she will miss her daily stint with the mail, but the community has had its peak, and in the interest of economy and government operations, she is willing to go back being just a housewife. Her husband, Glenn, operates a chicken farm on the neat farm adjacent to the post office and also works in the local GLF warehouse in the community. Look at the picture. 50. She had 50 days. Look at her dress. That's adorable. It's December 31st. Maybe we're to 53 by now. From Indian Trail to Superhighway. There's a date set. January 9th is the date set for the wedding of Mrs. Betty Lee Pritchard, daughter of Mr. and Mrs. Sheldon S. Pritchard. And yeah, anyway, they're getting married. Ooh, look at that. It's like an overhead of somebody's farm. Good morning. Gorse Line Home, Miller's Mills. White House in the Evergreens, West Winfield. The home of Mr. and Mrs. Myron Hibbard on the West Exeter Highway is located in a small valley. A stream flows through the front yard. Hemlocks form a grove which almost surrounds the house. The house itself is covered with white clapboards, which contrast with the evergreens. There is a front and a back porch. Garage is reached by drive, which crosses a bridge. Ooh, that's cute. Just pretty houses? Okay. Oh, twins. Didn't we have twins back here? It seems to be. Yeah. We got some twins over here. And we got some more twins. Dependents begin swimming lessons. Rustlers raid Valley Farm. PTO honored guest unable to attend. Injured by cow. I feel like we got to read this one. Kenneth Jones Cedarville was to have been the guest of honor at the West Winfield Central School PTO meeting Monday night. The program, This Is Your School, was in recognition of Mr. Jones's 20 years on the Board of Education and also the 20th year since the construction of the Central School building. On Monday afternoon, Mr. Jones, a cattle dealer, was kicked by a cow, cracking several ribs. The program that evening was tape recorded for his benefit and brought to his home the next morning. This Is Your School in capsule form was patterned after the TV program This Is Your Life. Walter Harrison was narrator and Charles Hardenberg, president of the Board of Education, stood in for Mr. Jones. The voices of various people connected with the school during the 20-year period were broadcast to the stage. Then they appeared before the audience. All right, you get the idea. Injured by cow. Presents are puzzling seems to be the feeling of 7-year-old Estrelita Augustine as she muses over a package before opening it. The little guest was showered with gifts of clothes and toys at the home of T. Sergeant, I don't know how to read it, you guys, and Mrs. Lloyd Kennedy, where she is a guest. The little girl is a member of the Philippine American Association settlement in Manila. That must be her. And everybody's just hanging out. Okay, March 12th, 1954. So we're in 54. Request the honor. Oh, marriage of their it's a wedding. The marriage ceremony will be solemnized at the Kappas Church on Wednesday, March 17th, 1954 at 6:30 a.m. Breakfast will follow at the home of the bride. They hyphenate words a lot more than I feel like we do now. Like we do justification and don't break it as much. Store at Chepachet supplies all needs of area families. Milton Mills, 82, proprietor of the Mills store at Chepachet, weighs out a few pounds of nails, part of his stock of groceries, hardware, wallpaper, dry goods, clothing, and shoes. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. We're having a party again. Oh, the other one was in there before. Okay, look at this. This thing, I saw this before. United Airlines. It's a ticket from United Airlines. And the fare was, I think it was $169.85. $195 with tax. We're going to international. That's why it was so... Oh, wait. This is a different ticket. Okay, so this is one ticket. And then this one got exchanged. I was trying to find the date. 3/13. Here we go. Duh. March 13th, 1952. March 10th, 1950. I mean, these are cool. I feel like those should probably be scanned. What's going on here? There's a little tiny thing in here. Sunday, April 11th, 1954. It must have fallen off of something. To an all-round good fellow. This, I thought